Hello, welcome back to the channel. I am the Disc Golf Nerd, and it's time for another Disc Golf die tutorial here on the channel. We're going to talk once again about clear glue beds, but we're going to try to be a little bit more succinct about it, try to keep the information a little bit more condensed than my original video, but still give you all the information as well as info that I have kind of learned and experience that I've gained over doing this for a couple of years now. This is one of my most recent dies. Really happy with this one. This is on a gold line fuse. This one's in my bag, and that'll just give you an idea of what this technique can produce, right? So that's what we're looking for, pretty much somewhere along those lines. And today we're going to be dyeing this Opto Havoc. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video. Not only will we show the finished results of the disc dye that we do together in this video, but this Havoc will also be auctioned off for charity. It'll be listed on eBay, and every penny from the sale of the disc will go directly to charity. I will even be covering the shipping myself. Okay, no sponsor to thank in this video. If you like the video, you appreciate me and the channel and all the time and effort and money I've spent trying to help you guys learn how to dye discs, find the right gear for yourselves, get better at disc golf, etc. All you have to do to help support me, $2 a month. You can sign up to my Patreon. It'd be a huge help. Big shout out to the Disc Golf Nerd Patreon support team. No sponsor to thank here. If you got a couple of extra bucks laying around and you want to help support me and the channel and all the stuff that I do to try to help you guys out with disc golf in various ways, check out my Patreon in the description below. Disc Golf Nerd, patreon.com/Disc Golf Nerd. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about the disc that you want to use. You want to use premium plastics. Some people seem to be able to dye like putters and stuff. I've never been able to do that, and I completely stay away from that at this point in my dyeing career. I go straight to premium plastics for Latitude 64. That would be gold line, like the fuse I showed you originally, and this is an Opto Havoc. I like when it's opaque like this. I feel like the dye looks nice with a little bit more of a background there, but you can dye the translucent premium plastics as well, like Champion. Star Plastic is some of the best. Castaplast K1 is great stuff to dye that people love, and Latitude 64 gold line. Dynamic Discs Fusion plastic, stuff like that. That's what you want to use. Today we're going to be dyeing this Opto Havoc. Opto and Lucid plastic dye is fantastic as well. Next thing you need to know, you got to wash the disc. I wash it with hot soapy water. I'll usually apply good quality Dawn dish detergent right to the surface of the disc, direct. I don't even cut it at all. I rub it in there really well, and I rinse it off really well with hot water. The discs can have oils on them from the manufacturing process. They can have oils from people's hands, dirt, schmutz, whatever it is. You don't want it on the surface of your disc. It's going to cause problems when you get it into the dye and not allow it to absorb the dye as well as it could. So clean, very clean, dry, premium plastic. Okay, we're going to put that aside. We're done with that for now. More things we need. We have a cake pan here, aluminum cake pan, some various odds and ends we're going to get into in just a second. First, we're going to talk about the glue. Doesn't seem to matter which glue you use. Maybe certain disc dye artists are really particular about the glue. I've never really heard of that. It seems like most people try to use whatever's cheap and available, and I use this cheap, clear, Craft Smart school glue that I get from Michael's. And you can find it online, whatever, you know, they have it at various big box stores and stuff like that. In person, you can get it at wherever. They have Elmer's glue, pretty common at most stores. It's more expensive, but it's good quality. This is the stuff that I use. Enough said about that. Moving on, we have an aluminum cake pan. I believe this is like a 9-inch pan. This is something different than I used to do when I first started. I was using an ultimate disc like a lot of people seem to do. I think this is a giant improvement over that. The aluminum cake pan, definitely the way to go. Cleans up better. It's got a nice flat bottom. Makes a very level surface of glue that you can apply your dyes to, and I think it's just better in all ways. Other things you need, I'll always have a paper clip around to help clear out the eyedroppers for my dye bottles. Also use this to pop bubbles and swirl around the dye. I'll use one of these defunct gift cards to scrape the glue off of the disc and out of the pan when I'm cleaning up. So that's a nice thing to have. You want to have a straw if you want to blow into the dye. Basically, we're going to lay down some glue. We're going to drip dye on top of it. You can use the straw to blow and manipulate the colors around on the surface of the glue. That's how you get all the different patterns and textures and stuff. And then I'll always have one of these cheap bamboo skewers as well for the same thing, for physically manipulating the dye as it rests on top of the glue. So there's that. Of course, you know, scrubber, sponge, or whatever to clean up the pans, clean up the discs after you're done, because it takes some doing. You gotta kind of dissolve the glue off of the surface of the disc and all that stuff. I'm not going to go too far into cleanup. You guys can figure that out on your own. This is just how to actually do the dye method itself. Digging into the dyes and the actual vessels I keep the dye in, I'm still using these dropper bottles, and I've used these for every single glue dye I've ever done. They continue to work great. A couple of pitfalls. You want to make sure you keep them topped off and keep an eye on them, because the acetone will evaporate over time. You'll end up with some dry kind of sludge in the bottom of your bottle. If that happens, add some acetone to it, fresh acetone, right to this level here or so. Shake it up, good to go. I've reused these bottles like that a number of times. This is still the original black mix that I've done. I've topped it off several times and it just keeps on rocking. For the dye itself, I'll just put a little layer on the bottom. I don't really measure it. It doesn't all sink into the acetone. Certain colors mix up better than others. That's all stuff you're going to learn. But I really love the Lemon Zest Yellow from Pro Chemical and Dye. I'm using that color a lot. That's my favorite color overall. Also using Radical Red from Pro Chemical and Dye. You can see some of the pigments at the bottom there. Sometimes the pigment, like certain pigments, will sink into the acetone and certain ones will sit on the bottom too. So there's a lot of interesting things that happen with the actual dye powders when you dig into that. Too much to cover here. Fluorescent Pink, another color from Pro Chemical and Dye that I like a lot. I just started using. This stuff's great. It's basically the pink equivalent of that Lemon Zest Yellow. And then I'll still use Idye Poly for certain colors as well. The Idye Poly Black is still my absolute favorite and still what I use today. So Idye Poly has good colors. Black, the Idye Poly Blood Crimson Red is fantastic. Really nice, deep, rich blood red if you're looking for that. Those are the 4 colors we're going to use for this particular disc, okay? Another thing to think about. This is a yellow disc, and you want to understand the color wheel, the color palette, and how that all works. I don't want to put certain colors on this because it might end up producing browns, and I don't want that. I want vibrant colors that look nice, that don't make the disc any harder to find in the woods, etc. So I'm usually using these bright colors. The yellow, Lemon Zest Yellow, on this yellow disc will not be visible. So it's just going to create negative space on the design and keep some of the underlying yellow coming through into the design. So that's the thought process there. So keep that in mind as well. If you're using a yellow disc and you try to add yellow dye to it, you might not be able to see it at all. So just keep that in mind. For yellow, I typically use black as an accent color, and then I just use reds and pinks for the most part. You can use blues and greens on yellow as well, but just basic, you know, kindergarten color wheel type stuff. Just look it up, figure it out in terms of the disc you're going to use. So we got a nice clean, completely clean, air dried, Opto Havoc premium plastic disc. We got our glue, we got our dye, a mix of powdered dyes from Pro Chemical and Dye, and also Idye Poly. Put a little bit of the dye powder in the bottom, fill it up with acetone, shake it up, good to go. Be careful with the acetone, it's flammable, and also be super careful with the dyes. This stuff will dye your countertops, your kitchen floor savagely. If you drop this black bottle with the cap off in your kitchen, it's going to be a disaster. So be extremely careful with the dyes and the acetone and all that stuff. Full PSA. Don't skip this part of the video. Pay attention. Hear what I'm trying to say, and don't come crying to me if you guys destroy your countertop. I have completely absolved myself from any responsibility in that. Be careful. Don't be an idiot, and you should be fine. Next step, we're going to add the glue, and we're going to start doing this thing. So stay tuned. Okay, let's get into it. Got a clean, dry pan here. There's no dust or debris in this pan of any kind that I can tell. We're going to put a thin layer of glue on the bottom here. It's not something that I ever measure at all. Just kind of pour it in as smoothly as I can. Try to keep a nice steady stream. Hopefully you're seeing this. It's going to be tricky to film all this stuff, guys, just so bear with me. And that's about it. As it pulls up there, hopefully you saw, I grabbed the stream with the cap, and then I put that cap back on, and that helps prevent bubbles in the center. If you do get a lot of bubbles, you can get a creme brulee torch, or like a dab torch essentially, and clear off the surface of the bed. If you shoot the bubbles with the flame from the torch, usually they'll rise to the surface and they'll burst. I don't care about the bubbles, so I'm just going to leave them alone. That's up to you if you want to deal with that. Nice layer of glue. You're not even going to be able to see it there. And what we're going to do is basically compass points to start out. I'm going to start in middle, north, south, west, east, right? And then from there, that will be my foundational color. Let's start it out. I think I'm going to go red in the middle, radical red in the middle. It'll be pretty easy for you guys to see. And, yep. So, as we talked about earlier, right? This one, if I pull it out, you can see the tip is a little bit caked up and the airflow is blocked, right? So I'll carefully take this over here, kind of dab off a little bit there, and I'll get my paper clip. Oh, I'll dig that in there. You can see there's a little blockage in there. Clear that. Now I'll just suck up some dye in there and we're fine. So we're going to go in the middle, like 3 drops. East. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the middle. 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now carefully try to get that over here. And those are our first initial colors. I'll let those sit. Now what's happening is the acetone is evaporating and leaving the dye powder sitting on the surface of the glue. Now if you want to, you could dunk a disc in this right here. If you think this looks cool, you want to put a disc in there and just get some red kind of nebulous looking circles on your disc, perfectly fine. You can totally do that if you want to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my next color, which is the fluorescent pink. This one right here from Pro Chemical and Dye. And I'm going to fill in these other spaces. So right here, right here, right here, and right there. All right, so I'm just going to do a few drops in these 4 spots here. Nothing crazy. Boom. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to use the yellow and fill in the other spots. Now again, this yellow isn't going to be visible on the disc. What it will do is it will move this stuff around. It will kind of change the colors that are in the bed already a little bit. Sorry, I'm probably bumping into the mic a little bit here. This is tricky. And I think I'll go ahead and put a drop of this right in the center as well. And watch what that does. It kind of like neonifies that red that's in the middle there. Right? Hopefully you can see what's happening there. Now, for the black, I'm going to go really light. The black is tricky. You can easily overdo it. If you guys have seen my original dye tutorial, you'll probably watch me overdo it with the black and then kind of try to fight that the whole rest of the time when I was really inexperienced. Still happy with the way that disc came out, but you want to be careful with the black because it can really overpower your design. So I'm just going to put like a little dab of it right here. Just 1 drop. Really carefully right there, right here. I'll do all 4 compass points here as well. Right, that's it. That's all the black I'm going to put in this bed. That'll swirl and move around and mix in, and it just really helps. The black really helps the design look cool, in my opinion, basically, because it just provides that contrast, changes the color a little bit. So now, the radical red is an interesting one. It stays kind of granulated in the dye, in the bed, so you can see, you might be able to see that. So I'll get a little bit more red in these corners here. This red is really thick now. I need to top it off for sure. You can see how thick the color is there. And now what I'm going to do, because I can, is I'm just going to get in here with this fluorescent pink, and I'm going to spread it around a little bit. Make sure I'm still recording. I think I am. I'm just going to get some of this fluorescent pink in here. Mix it in with some of this radical red. Maybe a couple of these other spots here. Maybe in this middle spot here. That sort of thing. And you can see how that fluorescent color really pops even on camera there. And that's producing some oranges if it mixes with the yellow and all that kind of stuff. So once again, basic color wheel stuff, right? So I think we're just going to use the skewer for this one, right? And what we're going to do is I'm going to go from outside to in one direction, and then see how it looks. Okay, I want to do this in a really simple, kind of smooth motion. I'm going to get up so I can have a little bit better chance at this. And here we go. From right here, boom. I'll pull that out, and I'll take it over to my paper towel, clear that off. Now hopefully you can tell that there's already kind of a cool pattern going in here. Now you can drag this out, you can do back the other way, into out. There's lots of different things that you can do here in terms of a pattern here. If I was going to use the straw, similar thing, you blow it in this direction, out and around. Let me see if I can show you a little bit of what the straw looks like. There we go. See how the straw pulls that line through there, and then the glue will kind of settle back down onto itself. That I really like. So I'm going to do that again. Right. Okay. Carefully swing it around. Now, depending on what surface you're doing this on, you're going to have to come to terms with the fact that it's going to move around and settle. It's just part of the deal. This is nice and level, though. It's actually working out good. And I'll do one more line with the straw so you can see it a little bit closer up. Watch it settle back down. Okay. The more you blow into it, the more likely it is that you'll get some saliva in there. Just be cognizant of that. Could change the way your bed is looking and stuff. And from here, we're looking pretty good. I could absolutely dunk the disc in here. You can keep doing this for as long as you want to, basically. You keep spreading it around, add some colors to it. Typically I will. Let's do that. Let's add a little bit of yellow to this, just so y'all can see what happens there. Usually I'll add color into these channels, right? There we go. Get some wild colors going on. I'm going to do the same thing out here. I'm just going to get some yellow around here to kind of neonify these colors a little bit. Getting a little crazy, but that's fine. I'll let those do their thing. Pretty trippy, huh? Okay. And here we'll do the trifecta. I'll also get in here with the skewer, or with the paper clip, and we're going to swirl it around again. So this time I'm going to go this direction. For a tighter swirl. That should be pretty good. Right? Y'all can see the dye bed there. Yeah, not bad. Maybe would have liked a little bit more black for some contrast. It's really only in the middle there. It didn't spread out at all. If I wanted to, I could put a little dab of dot here and there. If I wanted to, I could dab a little extra around the outside. Let's do that. A little bit of black out here. Okay. We'll let that settle. Then we'll swirl that one more time. And we will call it good. See how short I can make this video. But either way, hopefully it's more information packed than my last one. It was a little more rambly, a little more long form. Let's go back the other way. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to blow around the outside with the straw. and show you how that looks. It's always so tricky. Now that I'm done using the die, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure these caps are on. Nice and tight, put these out of the way so I'm not going to knock them over. Usually I do that as soon as I'm done with the color. I screw the cap right back on, real tight, move it aside, get it out of my way. Same thing here. Then we shall dunk this disc, and I shall show you my technique for that. Now, a couple things you can do. You can add some blue tape or masking tape to the back of the disc to make it a little easier to control. This one, I don't think I really need to worry about it too terribly much. What I'm going to do, make sure the disc is nice and clean. There's no schmutz or dust on the surface. Pull this in close, and I'm going to place it in on this front corner, and then watch and make sure it rolls down into the die, right? So I'm going to bring you guys in just a hair. Hopefully you can see the way it actually grabs the die and kind of applies it to the surface of this disc, right? So we'll get this front corner in. And slowly push it away. There we go. Boom. Get that settled down just till it hits the edge. And that is it, guys. She is in. And there's nothing left to do. I'm just going to leave it sitting here. All right, guys, we did it. There's nothing else to do but let this rest and absorb that die. I'll put a quick post-it note on it when it went in and when I'm going to pull it out. So I put it in 1 o'clock on Tuesday, 36 hours. It doesn't seem to really bother it if you let it go longer. You just don't want to pull it out too early because sometimes it'll kind of short it a little bit and it won't get as rich and vibrant as it could. So I would shoot for at least 24 hours, 24 to 36 or more, depending on the outcome you're looking to get. All right, guys. Talk to you in a couple days, and we'll take a look at the finished results. Remember, this disc will go onto eBay and auctioned off for charity as well. Okay, guys, we're back. Time to take a look at the finished results for the Havoc. Also wanted to show you another one I did recently. This is a new technique I've come up with recently where it's a double dip. I dyed it once with a really bright color set underneath, blue, lime green, and my favorite lemon zest yellow again. And then I did a completely separate dye using only black swirl on top, which ends up being kind of this like black / forest green vortex going on with this one. And this thing is pretty sick. It's a little dark, obviously, but man, it's a really, really beautiful disc. And I think it's going to be fun to continue to develop this kind of double dip technique, see what I can figure out in terms of putting down one layer and then putting down another layer on top of it without those colors actually having the opportunity to mix together because they're done separately. So that should be fun to experiment with more. Okay, we are finally ready for the big reveal, and here comes our Havoc. And I think it came out pretty sweet. Very red dominant as I expected, but it is kind of fiery. It's got some definite flame vibes going on with this thing. Really nice section there. You can see how the granulated nature of the radical red produces a lot of texture in the die and the design, which I really like. You can see how the black provides contrast. It actually kind of blends into the stamp as well. I didn't touch on it earlier, but you can leave the stamp alone. You don't have to mess with the stamp at all for this technique. As long as you allow enough time for the acetone to evaporate before you dunk the disc, you can put it straight in and the stamp won't be affected at all. I haven't had any issues with that. Some other dye techniques, you know, like my old shampoo dyes and stuff, sometimes the stamp will dissolve. But you can just leave it alone. And in this particular instance, I think it really blends in well. Always tricky to film it because of big glare, as you can see there. But here's another look at what the disc looked like originally in terms of the color and what we ended up with here. Really nice texture and stuff going on this thing. I love how you can still see the sparkles come through and the opto. That's nice. This is a cool section here as well. That black point there drags in. Pretty sweet. I'm very happy with it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something. You figure out how to do this technique for yourselves. Once again, this disc will be auctioned off for charity. You can find the listing in the description below. I'll even be covering the shipping myself, so every penny will go directly to charity. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the Disc Golf Nerd Patreon support team, my viewers, my subscribers, all of my supporters out there, my sponsors. I love you all, and I will talk to you all very soon. Cheers.